Hello, my name is Stephen Alltop. I serve as music director and conductor of the Champaign-Urbana Symphony Orchestra. I'm excited to tell you about our upcoming Baroque music concert on Saturday, November 16th at the Faith United Methodist Church at 4 p.m. This program will include music of both French and German composers and starts with music of Jean-Baptiste Lully. Lully served as the royal court composer for King Louis XIV, and Lully composed lavish operas that included ballets, some of which were designed for the king himself to dance in. You're going to hear music from his opera Roland, a lovely little suite that includes an overture, a very lively gigue, a courtly gavotte, and finally a chaconne. And the chaconne was one of the most popular genres of the time. It's where you have a harmonic progression that keeps repeating, over which sort of a series of variations occur, and you find them throughout French Baroque opera. Lully was famed for keeping his excellent orchestra, known as the violons du roi, or the violins of the king, together with a peculiar conducting style. He stood with a wooden staff and hit it on the ground just to make sure everybody could see and feel the rhythm. You can really get a good idea from that in the overture to Roland and how important the strictness of this time is. I think that hearing this music will make you feel very elegant. Next, we will feature music of Johann Sebastian Bach, his Brandenburg Concerto No. 5 in D major. And this piece dates from sometime between the years 1717 and 1722, when Bach was working for Prince Leopold of Cöthen. The prince loved music. In fact, he was a good enough amateur viola da gamba player that Bach sometimes wrote music to include him in the proceedings. The prince maintained a small but very good orchestra for which Bach was the court composer. And this particular Concerto Grosso calls for 3 soloists. The premise of the Concerto Grosso is, of course, a group of soloists playing in alternation with the larger group. You'll hear more about that with the music of Handel coming up. In this case, the 3 soloists are solo flute, solo violin, and solo harpsichord. The latter, a most unusual thing, because up to this point in music history, there had never been an orchestral work with a solo harpsichord part. And the occasion was that the prince had allowed for the purchase of a new harpsichord that came all the way from Berlin. And so appropriately, Bach featured the harpsichord in a big way in this 5th Brandenburg Concerto. The piece opens with very cheery music. And then the 3 soloists come in, the flute, violin, and harpsichord. And throughout the piece you have this lovely alternation between the tapestry of the 3 soloists and the full ensemble. Towards the end of the first movement, Bach writes some very rapid figurations for the solo harpsichord. He really puts this new instrument through its paces. Then suddenly everything stops and the harpsichord is given a big cadenza. And it just goes on and gets kind of wilder and wilder before the opening music returns. The second movement is just for the 3 soloists. It's marked affettuoso, which means very expressive. And to my ear, it's a pretty French music. It's rather French in character, I should say. And then the last movement is a gigue, and quite a happy one. much fun, and it'll make you very happy. And there's some kind of fancy stuff for the harpsichord in this movement as well. I think you'll really enjoy Bach's Brandenburg Concerto No. 5. As I have often done for our Baroque concerts at Faith United Methodist Church, I'll be performing a solo organ work. This time, the Toccata in D minor by Dietrich Buxtehude. Buxtehude was one of the greatest organists and composers of his day. When J.S. Bach was just 20 years old, in 1705, Bach walked almost 400 kilometers from where he was working in Arnstadt, Germany, to Lübeck, Germany, where Buxtehude led music. Bach got to meet Buxtehude, hear him play, see him lead music, and this was a very influential experience on the younger composer. Buxtehude played and wrote in a style known as the Stilus Fantasticus, or fantastical style. In it, we hear almost wildly improvisatory passages with dramatic silences, and those alternate with passages of strict imitation, fugal passages. Here is the beginning of this toccata in D minor. Some really wonderful, wild stuff. I really enjoy this piece, and I think that you will too. While George Frideric Handel is perhaps best known for his operatic and oratorio music, he was also a fabulous composer of instrumental music. When he was a young man, he traveled to Italy and met and worked with the famed Arcangelo Corelli, generally viewed as the great innovator of the Concerto Grosso. Handel absorbed this style completely and became one of the best composers in this style. The piece we're going to hear is the first of his Opus 6 Concerto Grossi in G major for strings only, and it begins with a movement that is very similar to the French overture. And then we hear the three soloists that this Concerto Grosso calls for, 2 violins and cello. And throughout the piece, we have this alternation between the 3 soloists and the full group, which is where we get the term Concerto Grosso. The next movement is a very cheery allegro. And it just is going to make you very happy to hear it. The next movement is a beautiful adagio that begins with the soloists. Then the full group. I love that movement. It's just so pretty. As I also love the next movement, which is a fugue and has a great starting subject played by the first violin. And the full group takes up the theme. And then the final movement is a rollicking conclusion in 6/8 time. And it's just going to leave you with a great feeling. Terrific piece by George Frideric Handel. We conclude with music of Jean-Philippe Rameau. Rameau was a generation younger than Jean-Baptiste Lully, but ultimately took up a similar post as composer of royal music for the court. Rameau composed lavish operas and also included significant ballet sections. And we're going to finish with a delightful melange taken from several of his operatic works. You'll hear quite a variety and Rameau's wonderful sense of color and imagination. And as always, a very elegant opening French overture, this one from Les Annes Galantes. And that's followed by some really brilliant fast music, and it'll be a great way to end the concert. We're looking forward to seeing you on Saturday, November 16th at 4 p.m. at Faith United Methodist Church. Please contact cusymphony.org for tickets. It's going to be a fun concert.